Hello. Today we're going to talk about the mind-boggling disappearances and unsolved mysteries that have taken place in one of the world's most enigmatic regions, the Bermuda Triangle. Located in the western Atlantic Ocean, this triangle, stretching between Bermuda, Florida, and Puerto Rico, has been the nightmare of sailors and pilots for centuries. So, what has really happened in this area? Which incidents have left even scientists and researchers baffled? Let's open up these mysterious files together. Flight 19, 1945. On December 5th, 1945, 5 TBM. Avenger torpedo bombers took off from the Naval Air Station in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, for a routine training flight. Everything was going smoothly at first. The weather was clear, the planned route was straightforward, and the planes were flying in formation. However, as the flight progressed, the flight leader reported over the radio, "My compasses have failed. I've lost my way." The pilots began to panic more and more during their radio communications, and they started giving conflicting information to each other. As night fell, their fuel began to run low, and eventually, all radio contact was lost. That day, 5 planes and 14 crew members disappeared without a trace. Immediately after the incident, the U.S. Navy launched a large-scale search and rescue operation. A Martin Mariner rescue plane sent to search for them also disappeared along with its 13-person crew. No trace of this plane was ever found either. In total, 27 people vanished as if they had evaporated into the ocean. Despite all the searches, neither wreckage nor bodies were ever found. The search efforts lasted for days, covering hundreds of kilometers. But the result did not change. In the Navy court's initial report, the incident was explained as a navigation error, but this was later changed to unknown cause. Many theories were put forward, such as compass malfunction, sudden storms, magnetic anomalies, or human error, but none could fully explain the disappearance. Some researchers suggested that magnetic fields in the area could have confused the compasses, while others thought that sudden weather changes might have misled the pilots. However, the fact that 5 planes and a rescue aircraft vanished without a trace turned the incident from an ordinary accident into a great mystery. Flight 19 became one of the most significant and symbolic events in the legend of the Bermuda Triangle. This disappearance has also been widely covered in popular culture, inspiring books, documentaries, and films. Even after all these years, the fate of Flight 19 and its crew remains unknown. This secret, hidden in the depths of the ocean, continues to increase the mystery and allure of the Bermuda Triangle with each passing year. USS Cyclops, 1918. In March 1918, the massive coal ship USS Cyclops, belonging to the U.S. Navy, set out from Barbados to Baltimore. On board were 309 crew members and passengers, along with a large amount of manganese ore. Everything was normal at the beginning of the journey. The weather conditions were suitable, and the ship was safely making its way through the Atlantic waters. However, just as Cyclops was approaching the American coast, all communication from the ship suddenly ceased. There was no distress call, nor any signal of danger. It was as if the ship had simply vanished into the depths of the Atlantic. The disappearance of the USS Cyclops became the largest non-combat loss in the history of the U.S. Navy. Immediately after the incident, the Navy and Coast Guard launched a large-scale search and rescue operation. Hundreds of kilometers along the ship's route were searched by sea and air, but no wreckage or bodies were ever found. The fact that this enormous 160-meter-long ship disappeared without a trace made the incident far more mysterious than an ordinary maritime accident. After the disappearance, many theories were put forward. Some researchers suggested that the ship may have been overloaded and could have sunk suddenly due to a structural failure. Others claimed that a sudden and severe storm in the area might have caused the ship to sink. However, the complete lack of any trace from the ship weakened these theories. Additionally, some speculated about sabotage, enemy attack, or unusual causes such as the magnetic anomalies, often mentioned in connection with the Bermuda Triangle. Over time, The disappearance of Cyclops was even linked to supernatural theories involving aliens or parallel universes. The loss of the USS Cyclops has become one of the greatest and most mysterious events in the legend of the Bermuda Triangle. For years, the incident has been the subject of books, documentaries, and research. Even today, the fate of Cyclops and the 309 people on board remains unknown. This secret, hidden in the depths of the ocean, continues to enhance the mystery and allure of the Bermuda Triangle. Every year, new investigations are launched to uncover the truth behind this disappearance. But the mystery of Cyclops remains unsolved. Star Tiger and Star Ariel aircraft, 1948 and 1949. In 1948 and 1949, two major disappearances in the skies over the Bermuda Triangle became some of the most mysterious events in aviation history. Two passenger planes belonging to the British South American Airways, named Star Tiger and Star Ariel, vanished without a trace in almost the same area in consecutive years. These two incidents became some of the greatest and most debated mysteries in the field of aviation within the Bermuda Triangle, and for years they have been the subject of countless theories, investigations, and speculations. The first disappearance occurred on January 30th, 1948. Star Tiger, with 25 passengers and crew on board, was flying from the Azores to Bermuda. Everything was normal at the start of the flight. Weather conditions were suitable, the pilots were experienced, and the aircraft was technically sound. As the plane approached Bermuda, the pilot sent a final radio message stating that everything was fine. However, shortly after this message, Star Tiger disappeared from radar and was never heard from again. Despite immediate search and rescue operations, not a single piece of wreckage or any trace of the passengers was found. Even with extensive searches over and around the ocean, not the slightest clue about the fate of the plane was discovered. A year later, on January 17th, 1949, another passenger plane, Star Ariel, took off from Bermuda, bound for Jamaica. There were 20 passengers and crew on board. Once again, everything was normal at the start of the flight. The weather was clear, communication was smooth, and the plane was on course. As Star Ariel approached Jamaica, the pilot made a final radio contact reporting no problems. But after this message, the plane suddenly vanished. Just like with Star Tiger, all search efforts failed to find any trace of the plane or its passengers. Searches by sea and air along the plane's route turned up neither wreckage nor any personal belongings. After both disappearances, the British government and aviation authorities launched comprehensive investigations. Many possibilities were considered, from technical malfunctions and sudden weather changes to pilot error and magnetic anomalies. The fact that the pilots reported no problems until the very last moment, and that weather conditions were good, made the incidents even more mysterious. The investigations examined the aircraft's maintenance records, the crew's experience, and all communications during the flights in detail. However, the complete lack of any trace from the planes meant that none of these theories could be definitively proven. Some researchers suggested that sudden weather changes or magnetic anomalies, which occasionally occur in the Bermuda Triangle, might have played a role in the disappearances. In particular, it was claimed that the magnetic field in the region could affect compasses and navigation devices, causing the planes to veer off course and crash into the ocean. On the other hand, over time, the incidents became associated with supernatural theories such as aliens or parallel universes. The disappearances of Star Tiger and Star Ariel are considered among the greatest mysteries in the history of aviation within the Bermuda Triangle. Even after all these years, the fate of these two planes and their passengers remains unknown. These disappearances, hidden in the depths of the ocean, continue to increase the mystery and allure of the Bermuda Triangle with each passing year. Even today, these incidents are still discussed and investigated in the aviation world. Every new investigation brings new questions and theories, but the mystery of Star Tiger and Star Ariel remains unsolved. These two disappearances have shown the world that the Bermuda Triangle can be just as mysterious and dangerous in the sky as it is at sea. Ellen Austin, 1881. In 1881, the events that befell the American schooner Ellen Austin as it sailed the Atlantic Ocean became recorded as one of the most mysterious and controversial incidents in maritime history. This event is remembered as one of the oldest and most intriguing cases in the legend of the Bermuda Triangle, and for years it has been told among sailors with both fear and curiosity. While en route from New York to London, Ellen Austen encountered an abandoned ship in the open sea, within the area known as the Bermuda Triangle. This ship had its sails up, its hull was intact, and its cargo was in place. Yet there was not a single crew member on board. The ship's name and registration could not be clearly identified, but there were no signs of damage or struggle. It was as if everyone on board had suddenly vanished. The captain and crew of Ellen Austen decided to take possession of this abandoned vessel. They placed some of their own men on the mysterious ship, and the two vessels began to sail together. However, shortly after, both ships were caught in a storm, and visibility was completely lost. When the storm subsided, the captain of Ellen Austen realized that the abandoned ship had disappeared. After hours of searching, the ship was found again, but this time, the new crew sent from Ellen Austen was also missing. Once again, there were no signs of struggle, panic, or violence. Everything was in its place, but the people had vanished as if into thin air. The captain selected another group from his crew and placed them on the ship, and the two vessels set out together once more. Yet, a similar storm struck again, and the abandoned ship disappeared once more. This time, it was never found again. The incident experienced by Ellen Austen quickly spread among sailors and led to the birth of ghost ship legends. Over time, the details of the event were passed down by word of mouth, with some accounts claiming the ship was found repeatedly and that each time the new crew disappeared. Some theories suggested the ship was seized by pirates, while others claimed supernatural forces were at play. Some even asserted that the Bermuda Triangle possessed a mysterious energy that caused such disappearances. Although the reality and details of the event have become debated over time, what happened to Ellen Austen remains a rare and enduring mystery in maritime history. DC-3 Passenger Plane 1948 On December 28, 1948, a DC-3 passenger plane that took off from Miami, bound for Puerto Rico, became one of the most mysterious disappearances in the skies over the Bermuda Triangle. On board were a total of 32 people, 2 pilots, 1 flight attendant, and 29 passengers. Everything was going smoothly at the start of the flight. Weather conditions were suitable, the plane was well maintained, and the crew was experienced. The DC-3 took off from Miami at night and set its course for Puerto Rico. Throughout the journey, regular radio communication was maintained between the plane and ground control, and no problems were reported. As the plane approached Puerto Rico, the pilot made a final radio contact, reporting that everything was fine about 80 kilometers before landing. However, shortly after this message, the DC-3 suddenly disappeared from radar and was never heard from again. Immediately afterward, search and rescue operations were launched, and extensive searches were conducted by sea and air along the plane's route. However, no wreckage or any trace of the passengers was ever found. Weather conditions in the area where the plane disappeared remained favorable, and there were no reports of storms or sudden weather changes. Following the incident, the U.S. Coast Guard and Navy conducted days of search operations to find the missing plane and its passengers. Hundreds of kilometers along the plane's route were searched, but the outcome did not change. The disappearance of the DC-3 resembled other disappearances in the Bermuda Triangle, sudden and without a trace. Investigations examined the plane's technical condition, fuel level, weather conditions, and the crew's experience in detail. Some theories suggested that the plane may have deviated from its course and crashed into the ocean due to a sudden air current or a magnetic storm. Other theories claimed that magnetic anomalies, which are occasionally observed in the region, could have affected the navigation devices and caused the plane to veer off course and disappear. However, the complete lack of physical evidence made the incident even more mysterious. The disappearance of the DC-3 is considered one of the greatest mysteries in aviation history, and once again highlights the dangers of the Bermuda Triangle in the air. Even after all these years, the fate of this plane and its passengers remains unknown. This disappearance, hidden in the depths of the ocean, continues to increase the mystery and allure of the Bermuda Triangle with each passing year. Even today, the disappearance of the DC-3 is still discussed and investigated in the aviation world. Every new investigation brings new questions and theories, but this great mystery remains unsolved. Marine Sulphur Queen, 1963. In February 1963, the disappearance of the Marine Sulphur Queen in the waters of the Bermuda Triangle was recorded as one of the most mysterious and controversial events in maritime history. The Marine Sulphur Queen was a large oil and sulfur tanker, 160 meters long, with a crew of 39. On February 2, 1963, the ship set out from Texas bound for Norfolk, Virginia. Its cargo consisted of tanks filled with liquefied sulfur, and at the start of the journey, everything seemed normal. The weather conditions were suitable, the ship was well maintained, and the crew was experienced. As the ship progressed through the Atlantic Ocean, the last radio message was received on the morning of February 4th. No problems were reported in this message. However, shortly after this communication, there was no further contact from the Marine Sulphur Queen. The ship disappeared along its route without leaving a trace. Immediately afterward, search and rescue operations were launched, and hundreds of kilometers along the ship's route were scanned by sea and air. However, only a few life jackets, some debris, and a few personal belongings were found. The ship itself and its 39 crew members were completely missing. Subsequent investigations revealed that the ship had some structural weaknesses. In particular, the tanks carrying liquefied sulfur were exposed to high temperatures and pressure, which posed a risk of cracks in the ship's hull and sudden explosions. Some experts suggested that the ship may have sunk very quickly as a result of a sudden explosion, which would explain why no wreckage was found. Other theories claimed that magnetic anomalies, sudden weather changes, or giant waves, phenomena often mentioned in connection with the Bermuda Triangle, could have played a role in the ship's disappearance. However, regardless of the cause, the fact that such a large ship and its crew vanished without a trace made the incident far more mysterious than an ordinary maritime accident. The disappearance of the Marine Sulphur Queen has become one of the greatest and most debated mysteries in the maritime history of the Bermuda Triangle. For years, the incident has been the subject of books, documentaries, and research. Even today, the fate of the Marine Sulphur Queen and its 39 crew members remains unknown. This disappearance, hidden in the depths of the ocean, continues to increase the mystery and allure of the Bermuda Triangle with each passing year. Every new investigation brings new questions and theories, but the mystery of the Marine Sulphur Queen remains unsolved. Carol A. Deering, 1921. At the beginning of 1921, what happened to the American schooner? Carol A. Deering became one of the most mysterious and hotly debated incidents in the history of the Bermuda Triangle. On the morning of January 31st, 1921, the Carol A. Deering was found run aground on the dangerous shoals known as Diamond Shoals near Cape Hatteras, North Carolina. The scene was highly unusual. The sails were up, freshly prepared meals were on the table in the galley. The crew's personal belongings and all the ship's cargo were in place. However, there was not a single person on board. It was as if the crew had vanished into thin air. The Carol A. Deering had carried coal from Portland, Maine to Rio de Janeiro and was returning to North America on her way back. The ship had last been seen on January 28th, when it had a brief encounter with a lighthouse keeper and then continued on its course. But a few days later, the ship was found aground and completely abandoned. The ship's rudder was broken, the lifeboats and the logbook were missing, and there was no trace of where the crew had gone. Rescue teams who arrived at the scene found no signs of struggle, panic, or violence on board. Everything was in order, as if the crew had simply disappeared. After the incident, the U.S. Coast Guard and Navy launched a comprehensive investigation. Many theories were put forward about what happened to the crew, why they abandoned the ship, and where they went. Some researchers suggested that a mutiny had occurred, and the crew had escaped in the lifeboats. Others raised the possibility of a pirate attack or abduction. However, the fact that all valuables and cargo were still on board weakened the likelihood of robbery. Moreover, there were no reports of severe storms or maritime accidents in the area at that time. Some theories claimed that supernatural forces or magnetic anomalies, often mentioned in connection with the Bermuda Triangle, might have played a role in this disappearance. The disappearance of the Carol A. Deering quickly made headlines in newspapers and caused a stir in the maritime community. For years, the incident has been the subject of books, documentaries, and research. Even today, the fate of the Carol A. Deering's crew remains unknown. These people, who vanished in the middle of the ocean without a trace, continue to be told as one of the most striking examples of the Bermuda Triangle's mysterious past. This event contributed to the belief among sailors that those who enter the Bermuda Triangle never return, and helped spread the region's reputation around the world. Despite all the years that have passed, what happened to the Carol A. Deering remains an unsolved mystery, hidden in the depths of the ocean.